Welcome back to Don't Waste the Chaos, the podcast where we explore how to navigate challenges and create opportunities in life and in business. Today, we're tackling a topic that's on many employers' minds: how to develop young employees who may be falling short in soft skills, communication, professionalism, and in general, just business acumen, and how managers can lead them effectively. Now, this is a conversation that I've had with a ton of my clients over the past couple of years, and I hear organizations talking about this regularly when it comes to HR meetings and professional meetings. So we've got a generation of folks that might not have stepped into that like formal training. Our workforce looks very different. Our communication looks very different. We are using phones in a completely new and different way. So we've got generations like mine, I'm 42 and older, and we have went through some more like formal, let's say professional training. And then we've got younger generations who are stepping into the workforce. And while we don't need all of that pomp and circumstance that we've had before, we do need some general professionalism and communications training. And so I get asked this a lot. How do I get young people, or maybe it is a person who's a little more seasoned, that's a little short on the professionalism side? What do I do, Carrie? This is what I get asked a lot. So whether you're a young professional looking to grow or a leader looking to develop your team, this episode is for you. So let's jump in and start talking about the challenge. Let's acknowledge the truth. There's a skills gap that we're discussing that often isn't a lack of potential, but it's a lack of exposure. Soft skills like communication, professionalism, and business acumen aren't always taught formally anymore, and many young employees are navigating their first professional environments. So instead of viewing this as a shortcoming, let's see it as an opportunity for growth for young professionals and for managers alike. And let's be honest, I see a lot of issues with middle managers as well. I did a previous podcast with John Thomas. He was on, and we were talking about how a lot of middle level managers get promoted and it's years before they have managerial training. So now we've got maybe young folks struggling in the professionalism or business acumen space, and we've got middle managers who aren't prepared to lead. It's the perfect storm right now. And so you ought to go back and listen to my episodes on middle management. This one in particular, we're talking about the business acumen side. I just don't want you to think that I don't recognize there's issues across the board. We've got some development that we need to focus on in 2025. If you heard one of my previous episodes, I talked about major trends that I'm seeing in 2025, and I'm pumped to say the professional development, learning and development, training and development, those are back on the table. They'd gotten pulled during COVID, budgets have gotten pulled, and now we're seeing the need for upskilling and reskilling and some of this professional development training. So I'm pumped to see that. And this is right along that vein. So if you're a young professional, here's how you can level up in these 4 areas. And managers, listen up. These are the main areas that I would recommend you tackle with your staff if you're seeing a need. So we're going to talk about soft skills, communication, professionalism, and general business acumen. So let's dive in. On the soft skills side of things, one of the top traits or skills that we need, behaviors that we need to work on, is active listening. We need to practice active listening. This is focusing on truly understanding what others are saying instead of thinking about your response. And these skills right here are going to positively impact your employees in their personal life as well as their professional life. So these are important skills to learn. I went to a marriage seminar years and years ago with my husband. I think it was actually before we were married. And we went through this active listening seminar, and it was super cheesy. I've talked about it on the pod before, but this is what we learned. And it's been really helpful in seasons where we're both just striving to be heard instead of really working on seeking to understand or to listen. And so if you're watching me on video, you see I've got this ink pen in my hand. And essentially what happens is I say, as an employee, I feel misunderstood. I feel like I'm not being given the benefit of the doubt. I feel like my work is not valued, whatever it is that I'm feeling. And the other person, the manager, or if I'm having conflict with a colleague, needs to listen. And candidly, they need to shut their mouth because I'm the one with the ink pen, right? So this is the exercise. So I say my feelings, and when I feel like I'm done, and I mean, I'm going to get the chance to get the ink pen back, but when I feel like I'm done, I hand the pen. The other person receiving it says, first, I heard you say you feel X, Y, and Z, and that you feel like this is happening because of A, B, and C, and that that's causing D, E, and F, whatever that is. We're going to pair it back. What happens is when we know that we have to pair it back to someone, what does that do? That causes our brain to say, stop thinking about what you want to say because you're going to need to parrot this back. And you're not going to be able to if you're thinking about what you have to say. So our brains, when we do this, when we say in our workplace, when we are having conflict, our first thing we're going to do, we're going to set the standard, we're going to parrot back. Then our brains kind of shut off in one area and turn on in another. And we're actively listening. Okay, yes, I hear you say that. Okay, that makes sense. That's understood. I can see how you feel that way. Those kind of responses versus immediately trying to reply with our rebuttal or what it is that we're thinking. We're practicing active listening. There's a lot of different exercises you can do. Google is your friend here, or you can have an outside trainer come in and do some role playing. But regardless, that active listening is one of the first soft skills that we need to work on. The second thing we need to work on is building empathy. Empathy is a word that's been thrown around a lot. You might hear a person call themselves an empath. You might hear somebody say, I can be sympathetic, but not empathetic. This has become a really popular term. When we're building empathy, we're trying to see situations from other perspectives, and it is a foundational skill for teamwork. And lucky for me, in my not typical brain, my neurodivergent brain, I am low emotive. So it's easier for me to hear what you're saying from a logical perspective, not thinking about my emotions, and just take what you're saying for what it is. And it can more quickly make sense in my brain, not because I'm smarter, but because I'm truly listening to you and I'm trying to figure out, is this a rational feeling or not? Not, how do I feel about this? How does this impact me? I'm trying to figure out, like, is how you're feeling logical or rational, or is it just emotional? And regardless of what it is, I'm trying to understand what you're talking about. I love being able to put myself in other people's shoes. It's powerful. It's very, very powerful because when you can do that, a person feels understood by you. They feel known by you. They feel supported by you. And if you're a manager, this means they are going to perform better for you. So anytime that you can stop thinking about what it is that you're trying to get and listen and put yourself in that person's shoes, you can build empathy. You're going to go much further down this journey. So I would recommend for a young person to volunteer for team projects or roles that push you to collaborate with others. The more you're collaborating with others, the more you're forced into practicing active listening, and the more that you're forced into building empathy because you're working with other people. And to be able to get these projects done, it's not like college where one person picks up all the weight, or at least it shouldn't be. I know in a lot of workplaces it can, but if we're truly working on collaboration and bringing all of our skills and abilities to the table, we are going to learn this soft skill. And so as a manager or as a leader, think about this. Think about times that you could create interdepartmental teams and encourage this collaboration. And when you do so, your employees are going to learn how to practice active listening, and they'll be building empathy. Therefore, they will be building their soft skills. Okay. Second thing, if you're a young professional that you need to work on, or as a manager that we need to be training on, is communication. We need to improve our verbal skills. So ways to do this would be practice speaking confidently in meetings or even during one-on-one with your manager. Start small and build up. So I don't mean when you're in a meeting just speaking for the sake of speaking, but if you are listening and you have got an idea and you're like, man, I'd like to speak up, but I don't know as much about this, or I'm new to the team, or I don't know 100% if I understand what they're talking about. Those are all great reasons why you should speak up. They're all reasons why people normally don't speak up, but they're all excellent reasons as to why you should. If you're new to the team and you have a different perspective, you are an amazing value to this organization because you've got something, this external perspective to bring to the table. A lot of times in an organization, we're doing groupthink. We know what the senior leader wants. We're all just kind of rowing that boat in the same direction. And nobody's saying like, hey, Does this make sense? Is this what our clients want? Does anybody else understand this? But you, if you're new to the team and you're thinking, I just don't know if this makes sense for me to speak up, you're the perfect person to speak up. Say something qualifying, like, I know I'm new here, but as I was listening to you talk, I was thinking about X, Y, or Z. Now, you don't want to do this every single time because then you become the person who's constantly bringing in their college projects or their last employment to the table every single time something gets brought up. You say, well, when I worked at such and such, we did it like this. Okay, well, that's not as valuable. And we don't want to do that every single time because at some point someone's going to look at you and say, maybe you shouldn't have left that place if you think it's so fabulous. So I get it. There's perspectives that other people are going to throw at you, but grow in your confidence. Try this out in your one-on-one with your manager, and then try it on for size at a team meeting. Throw something out there or say, I might not be understanding this completely correctly, but I'm hearing you say blah, blah, blah. What if we did this and that? I mean, a naysayer might quickly shoot you down, but if you've got mature leadership in the room, they're going to be like, oh, well, I hadn't thought about it that way, or that's a good perspective, or even just thank you for speaking up. I love that you did that and you had the confidence. Now, if you're working with insecure leadership, that's not going to be the response. Let it be a red flag to you, or at least a yellow flag, friends, that you might not be in the healthiest work environment. But if you're going to improve on your communication, you have to flex in this area. You've got to work on improving your verbal skills. And this happens by starting small and building up. We also need to work on our writing skills. So I notice that what's happening in our professional writing is we're jumping right in and we're forgetting context. I am an individual who's context sensitive. And so I just was coaching an employee the other day and I was saying like, hey, I'd like to check in on these 3 tasks and where you're at. And what he said was, yep, I've done that one. I knocked that one out. And then this other one, I did a couple things on that. And then this other one, we're right on track. And I was like, thank you so much for the status update. But I am a person who, a couple of things. 1, you're new, so I don't know what it means for you to have knocked it out. And 2, I want to help coach you through the process. And so walk me through what exactly you've done. And the beautiful part about it was this employee was like, oh yeah, okay. So when I said that I had been working on the SOPs, I went in, audited every single SOP, made updates and shared them with the team. I was like, okay, all-star. And then he said, yeah, and when it comes to the training on this software, I went online, I created an account. They had to build it for me. Now I've gotten the account. And did you know? And he pulls up his phone and shows me, these are 2-minute videos. And this is what we can use these for. So I've watched a few of those and I was like, great. What have you learned? And he shared a couple of things. And I was like, I would love to have in our daily meeting for you to talk about some of this when it comes to it's our CRM essentially at one of my clients. And you share this with other people on the team so that they can maximize their utilization of the system as well. So now I'm going to show this guy as our subject matter expert in this area, and he's going to train others, and we're all going to do better on the system because of it. But if he doesn't give me the context, then I'm not even going to know when to praise him or what's going on. So as a leader, we've got to ask the questions. We can't just be taking folks at their word. Let's tease that out so we can understand what exactly they've done so we can either praise them appropriately or coach them appropriately. But then as a newer employee, you cannot take for granted that your manager is only thinking about your one project that you've worked on. Usually they've got a lot of different people reporting to them and they're working on a lot of different projects and initiatives. And unfortunately, they might not even remember what they've assigned you with. So if you just say, we're right on track, shame on them if they're like, cool, good, and they don't dig a little bit deeper. But why don't you go ahead and give them that context? When it comes to writing specifically, when I get an email that's what I would call half-baked, so I've gotten half of the information, I'm already a little annoyed when I have to respond back and be like, hey, can you tell me essentially either how we got here or the context or who else is involved? Or when you said the team, who's on the team for this project, or what are the next steps? If I have to ask more than 2 questions, I'm a little annoyed. A lot of times I'm just going to schedule a meeting or pick up the phone. I don't want to go back and forth and create more work for you and I by asking questions and you just answering exactly what I asked. And then that sparks more questions in my mind. Try to sit down and think through. Hey, just as a recap on this project, I was assigned this by so-and-so, and the reason for the initial project was this. These have been my findings, and these are the folks that I have talked with. when I've been getting this work done. Right now, here's where I'm at on the status, and then here are next steps, or here's the obstacles I need you to remove, or, can you give me some guidance on where you want me to go next, or whatever it is. Would you like to have a meeting to talk about it? Whatever that is, but give your manager as much information as possible. While you're doing this, make sure you're double checking that email for clarity, tone, and professionalism. Some people use tools like Grammarly. You can, of course, throw it in OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, any of those tools. But let's put a little bit of the formality back in our writing and get away from texting in an email, because really that's just creating more work. A tip that I've got for you on this is role-playing conversations. A lot of us don't like to role play. One, it feels kind of cheesy. And two, it feels nerve-wracking because we're getting put on the spot. But wouldn't you rather role play with a mentor or a trusted peer before you get into a conversation with your manager and they're like pointing out 7 different areas where you dropped the ball on the project? I mean, they should be coaching you and being loving, but you know what? I can't guarantee that your manager's like that. So go the extra mile. Test this out with a colleague, especially if you've got a peer or a colleague who has worked at the organization longer than you. They will, one, feel valued by you because you're asking them for their amazing seasoned perspective. So that is going to gain brownie points with them. And the person in your department who needs the strokes like that. So give it to them, ask them for their feedback. And then two, when you come to that meeting better prepared, like magic, now you're going to get praised for that. Okay, we've talked about focusing on your soft skills. We've talked about your communication. Let's talk about general professionalism. A few things that seem obvious, but maybe we don't know what they mean. So I just want to go over them. The first is be punctual. Show up on time. This demonstrates respect for others' schedules. And listen, I know this goes both ways, and I coach managers about this very, very often. So I'm going to first say this so that way I'll go back to you as an employee so you will listen. So managers, if you keep pushing your one-on-one meetings with your employees are going to assume that those one-on-one meetings are pointless to you, and then they're going to take them less seriously. They're not going to be prepared with an agenda. They're not going to show up on time. And I know you're the manager and you think they should just do it anyway, but they're going to take and follow your lead. And so you are setting the tone for this. HR staff, if we aren't onboarding our employees in a professional manner, and we're haphazard and we're not really prepared for them and their tech isn't set up and the paperwork's messy and so on and so forth, then when this employee shows up on the first project that they're on and they're haphazard and messy and so on and so forth, they learned it from you. So this starts at a leadership, at an HR, at an onboarding level, but employees, you're getting paid to be here. So let's be the very best version of ourselves that we can. And we need to do this by being punctual. Just show up on time. Maybe even a few minutes before. But if you're showing up to a meeting with your boss and you're showing up 15 minutes in advance, most generally that's going to annoy them because a lot of times they're back to back to back with meetings, or they're trying to fit in a couple of answers to emails or whatever. So just show up promptly. That is on time, maybe just a hair before, 3 to 5 minutes before at the most. Next, let's dress for the role. This is important. And you know what? I work remotely and I am guilty of, showing up. This morning, I had a massage and my hair was just completely greasy. And I had a call about 30 minutes after I got home. So that meant I didn't have time to sauna and shower. So I slicked my hair back in a bun and I pulled on a sweater and tried to get it together. Showing up for that, you've heard it before, show up for the job that you want, not necessarily the job that you have. But even in casual workplaces, aim to be slightly more polished than the baseline. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, I have always been a smart casual dresser. So even when I'm going out somewhere, like later I'm taking my dad to a doctor's appointment, I'm wearing jeans and a sweater. I'm done up a little bit. I'm going to be out in public. Now, I own my own business, but whether you own your own business or you're reflecting someone else's business, when you are well put together, people treat you better, right or wrong. They take you more seriously, right or wrong. And for me, I am almost always debating something with someone or asking questions, and they take me seriously because I look like a professional almost everywhere I go. It's just the way that I am. It's just the way I like to show up. You don't have to show up this way, but be prepared to be taken less seriously. Dress for the role that you're in. And let's say you're working in fast food service or in restaurant service. So you're wearing black pants and a black top and black shoes, tuck your shirt in, put a belt on, accessorize, make sure your hair's done. Ladies, make sure your nails are done. Gents, make sure our hygiene's right. Nails are clean. You can always elevate your look. You can always take that look a little bit further. I'm not saying try to show up as somebody that you're not, but if you are tidying up just a little bit more, you can always elevate wherever you're at, and that sets you apart. I would recommend my tip for you on this is finding a professional mentor to model your behavior after. See what they do and try to mimic it. That's a pretty easy way to do it. Or goodness sakes, get on Pinterest, get on wherever you want to do and look for the outfits of the day. Get on TikTok and look for the OOTD. But there's plenty of people modeling this, and you know what it is that you want to be. Go be it. Go start playing the part right now. Okay, we have covered soft skills. We've covered communication. We've covered professionalism. Let's go into business acumen. So in just general, the business acumen aspect. The first thing I'm going to recommend to you on this is to learn the industry. So whatever industry you're in, whether you're working in insurance or at a dentist office, read articles, attend webinars, and ask questions to understand the big picture of your field. If you are only thinking about the small role that you play in your organization, whether you're a bartender, whatever it is, if you're only thinking about that, but you don't have any kind of scope on how the business makes their money, or what their top competitors are, or what keeps the CEO up at night, you're kind of missing the point and you're not going to perform as well in your role. And so understanding the industry, and if you're like, I am not reading any trade journals on XYZ because that's boring, you're working in the wrong field. Like, for shame, get out of that industry. If you don't care about it, work in an industry that you're actually passionate about, where it's not hard to read through. Like, I read 2 different HR blogs every single day, and I'm interested in it. It's fun for me. I understand that makes me a nerd, and I'm in an industry that most people don't want to know about, but I'm curious, like, who's requiring return to office, and what are the most recent layoffs that people are doing? And what are the tools that people are using for their benefits administration? Like, I'm curious about that. I want to read it all of the time. The first 20 minutes when I was sitting in my sauna this afternoon, I'm flipping through a few trade journals because I want to know what's up. Not to mention, how can I be good and show up for my clients if I'm not keeping up with those things? They're not keeping up with those things. That's why they're paying me. And same thing as an employee. If you're only looking in your lane, you're missing a lot to your right and to your left, and your managers can tell. So if you truly integrate yourself in this industry, they're going to be like, wow, they are passionate about this, and they're going to look at you much more greatly for potential promotions. Also, take some initiative, offer solutions instead of just pointing out problems. It shows you're thinking strategically. One of the old sayings that's been around forever and ever, which is kind of annoying, but it just is what it is as a manager, managers will say, like, don't come in here and drop your monkey off on my back. And this is like an old school training, but it's true, right? If you're an employee and you come in and you're like, this and this and this is a problem, the first thing that I'm going to say every single time, and I'm going to say it ad nauseum, like, you are going to be annoyed at me. I'm going to be like, well, what would you do if you're in my shoes? Or have you seen this done elsewhere? Or what do other people think? Does anyone have a solution in your department? Did you have any ideas? And if the answer to all of those things is, I don't know, I'm going to say, did you just come in here to drop off a problem to me? Like, I understand I'm the leader, I'm the manager, but come with an idea, because folks that come with just problems are a problem. Folks who come with problems and then a few ideas on how to address it, they are part of the solution. And you might be thinking right now, I don't know. I don't even know how to address it. Just Google it. Just ask a couple of colleagues, hey, are you having this problem too? So then when you're able to bring it up, you're able to say, like, I talked to so-and-so in this department and so-and-so in this department. They're also having these issues. So this looks like a trend. Do you want me to call someone, or where do you recommend that I go? Even just by saying that, you're being a part of the solution and not just being like, hey, just letting you know we're having an outage on blah, blah, blah software. Like, are you the only one having the outage? Is this department wide? Who have you talked to? Has anyone contacted help desk? Like, go the extra mile, like I was talking about before. It shows that you're thinking strategically. Okay, my hot tip on this one is ask your manager how your work impacts the organization's goals. Now, Is this going to put your manager back on their heels a little bit? It could. If they're not well prepared, you're going to be making them better if they're not well prepared for this. But if they are well prepared, they're going to love you for this question because they're going to be like, I love that you even care about that. So many people don't, or so many people maybe do, but they're not thinking about that or asking about that or doing things that would positively impact that area. So if you just say, how does my work? I just want to make sure that I am focused in the right areas. How does my work, my role impact the organization's goals? Or what are the organization's goals for this year? Or what were they for last year and how they changed for this year? Just ask the questions. If you rub somebody the wrong way by asking the questions, first of all, congratulations. That is the shoe that I've been wearing my entire professional life. And actually, it's gotten me pretty far. It is going to rub some people the wrong way, but your curiosity is admired by people who are driven and have clarity about their business and want to get to the next level. Okay, let me move on to some tips for managers because managers is equally important to meet young employees where they are and help them grow. So here's some practical ways that I want to run through to do that. Number one, teach them through coaching. We want to model the skills. Show what good communication, professionalism, and decision making look like in practice. So you go the extra mile when you're asking them to do a project, give them the context. Here's why we're doing the project. Here's what we've done in the past. Here's what's worked. Here's what hasn't. Here's other people that this is impacting in other departments. Go the extra mile, paint the full picture. They will deliver better. When it comes to professionalism, managers, level up your dress, level up your speech, level up the way you're showing up, you be prompt and all of those things. And then when it comes to your decision making, what I like to do is explain to employees how I came to a decision. So I don't like just to say, here's what we decided. I like to say, based on X, Y, and Z, or this is what we learned, or market research, or customer feedback, or whatever it is, we learned this. And so this is why I think we're going to move in this next direction, or this is the direction that I've chosen based on that information that helps them understand we're modeling the skills. We often need to be offering constructive feedback as well. Be specific about what needs improvement and why it matters. Not just saying, hey, would you mind to, make sure that you're completing your daily checklist because it looks like you're not. I would go on to say, because X, Y, and Z were missed, and here's what the impact that has on the person that opens the next day, or, here's the potential legal ramifications or whatever it is. Instead of saying be more professional, you could say, I noticed you used casual language in that client email. A more formal tone might build more credibility. So you said this, but here's a recommendation on what I would say. Just go ahead and model that behavior and offer the feedback. So that first thing we're going to do is teach through coaching. The second thing as managers that we're going to do are set clear expectations. We need to define what success looks like in their role, from email etiquette to how to prepare for meetings. Just be explicit. And you can even say like, hey, I'm not trying to talk to you like you've never worked in a professional environment before. No, maybe they haven't, but still, let's treat them like professionals. We're paying them to be here. And so it's okay to say, I might be doing overkill right now with my communication, but I just want to make sure I'm setting you up for success. So just so you know, we always work to be 3 minutes early to a meeting. We come with our notepad and our pen because this boss doesn't like laptops open, or come with a laptop to take notes, or, whatever it is, whatever those unspoken rules are, spell them out so your person understands what success looks like in their role. And then, speaking of checklist, create a checklist of professional standards that they can follow. Just be explicit, especially if they're working on a project that's a little more ambiguous. Just let them know, like, this is the deadline. Here's when I would like updates. Here's what updates look like to me. And here's at what frequency. And here's how to get meetings on my calendar, whatever that looks like. Now, if somebody gives you feedback that you talk to people like they're kindergartners, like think about your tone. But clarity is best in this situation, at least until they learn what the general standards are in the organization. So we talked about teaching through coaching. We talked about setting clear expectations. Next, let's go over providing growth opportunities. I would recommend that you pair your new folks with mentors who exemplify the skills they need to develop. I talked often about mentorship programs in organizations. It's been on multiple episodes in the past. I put this on my blog. I've got a weekly LinkedIn newsletter, and I talk about mentoring on all of them. It's very important. But here's what I've seen in the past. So when I was at a large financial institution and when I was in higher education at a public land grant, both of these times I was like, we need to set up a mentorship program. We don't have one. And we've got all of these young leaders. At one of these organizations, we had 140 young leaders leading in this organization, team leads, middle managers. And so I was like, we need to set up a mentorship program. So I sent out a survey and said, who would like a mentor and who would like a mentee? And do you know that over 90% of these folks said they would like a mentor? So now I have this whole program of people who want a mentor. Now, that just speaks to the fact that so many of us have never been mentored in an organization formally, and we're craving it. We're craving it. I would love a mentor in my space right now. I find it in a variety of different places, but as far as just having like one pivotal, either personal or professional mentor, I pay a coach because I don't have an active mentor in my life right now. So I'm paying a business coach, which is another way to get it. Pay somebody if you can't find somebody to volunteer in this way. But in your organization, think about setting up a peer-to-peer mentorship program because, like I admitted, most all of us want a mentor. We feel like we're lacking in this area. So if you set up a peer-to-peer mentorship relationship, then they've got internal colleagues that they can work together and mentor each other, bounce ideas off of each other. But we want to pair them with mentors that exemplify the skills that these employees need to develop. We also need to offer leadership opportunities, even on a small scale, to build their confidence and their decision-making skills. This means they're going to fail, and we need to be prepared to be there, lift them up, support them, and coach them through it. But offering them these opportunities like, hey, I'm getting ready to work on a project. You want to collaborate with me on it? Like, that gives them a larger purview into the business, and it gives them that ability to grow the areas of confidence, grow their decision-making skills. So provide them with growth opportunities. So we're teaching through coaching. We're setting clear expectations. We're providing growth opportunities. And next, we're going to focus on emotional intelligence. We need to teach them how to navigate workplace relationships, how to handle feedback, and how to manage conflict professionally. All of those things are tough for so many of us, but that's what we're here for as a manager, is to help our team members navigate these tough workplace relationships. Sometimes it's political. Sometimes the environments we're working in, if we're working in a, let's say, in politics or in government or in a place that's consensus driven, or, we've got a senior leader who struggles to delegate. There's a lot of different things that we have to manage in a business. As a leader, we need to help our folks navigate what workplace relationships look like. When it comes to handling feedback, coaching them on how to handle tough feedback, critical feedback, constructive feedback. And just real quick, I would say to you, if someone's giving you constructive feedback, maybe they're not even saying it in a nice way. If you are in a culture that never gives feedback, feedback's going to be very hard to take. But if you are in an organization that openly gives feedback, so managers, if you're doling the feedback out with regularity, it actually will become easier for them to take. It's easier for them to take the more you give it. Now, you need to make sure that you're praising them for what you see them doing well as well, because feedback is not all negative. But the more you give it, the easier it will become. So it starts with you modeling it for them. And then when you're giving them feedback, it's really helpful if you say, I've really struggled with X, Y, and Z in the past, or I currently struggle with A, B, and C. These are my current issues and I'm working on them. Those are really important. And then how to manage conflict professionally. So many of us have big feelings. I mentioned earlier that I am a little bit lower on that emotive scale. Some of us are very, very high. Some of us are lower logic, higher emotion. That's just the way that our personalities are made, and that's okay. We need to help individuals understand how to manage conflict professionally. And if you are a leader that doesn't know how to do this yourself, get a coach, get a mentor, and you need to work on this as well. But we need to be able to model this for our people. One of the ways we can do this is doing role play scenarios to help them prepare for real world interactions. That's very important, whether they're interacting with a client or with colleagues, whether they're submitting a proposal, or they're up for a promotion, whatever that is, role playing scenarios with our team members are going to help. So we've talked about teaching through coaching. We've talked about setting clear expectations, providing growth opportunities, and focusing on emotional intelligence. The fifth thing, managers, and final that I want to talk about today is celebrating progress. We need to make sure that we're rewarding and recognizing improvements. So we've got some shortcomings, and our employees probably know that they have some areas to grow as well. We need to reward and recognize the improvements that they're making. It boosts morale, it reinforces positive behaviors, and in general, it makes you a great leader. There's some data out there that says for every one piece of critical feedback, we need to give 7 praises. I know that's tough, and I don't want you necessarily writing a tally mark down unless you particularly suck at this, and then maybe you should, so you can get better at it. But I was listening to something the other day. It was an interview, and it was an interview with a chief people officer at Netflix. I don't know if she's still there, but she was the chief people officer at Netflix at the time. And she was talking about a manager and an employee, and they were from 2 different cultures. And the manager was like, okay, I've got to give this person some final feedback, because if I can't coach him up, I'm going to coach him out, essentially. So he sits down with his employee, he gives the feedback, he goes back to the HR person, and he's like, I laid it to her straight. I feel like we're really clear now, and she's got a clear path forward. I think she's really going to improve. So the HR person goes back to the employee and says like, hey, how's it going? Just checking to see. I know you had a recent performance review with your manager. How's it going? And she was like, I'm essentially knocking it out of the park. I'm doing so well. The disconnect was that manager sugarcoated it so much the employee didn't hear how much of dire straits she was in. And so it's important that we give the truth in love. We give the truth in grace. And so we are telling them the truth. We're doing it in a loving way. Part of it being loving is that we're giving it to them at all, instead of ignoring it, letting it build, and then firing them. So we need to be honest with them, give them an honest evaluation, give them a clear path forward, actionable steps where they can improve. And then we need to celebrate their progress when it happens. So how do we bridge the gap? Managers and young employees can work together to bridge the skills gap. Open communication is critical. Managers should ask young employees about their goals and what their challenges are, and employees should be seeking feedback regularly. Remember, this isn't about fixing someone's flaws. It's about unlocking their potential. So for young professionals, I would like for you to identify one skill to focus on this month and commit to improving it. You know that you show up late, or you've been lax in the way you're dressing, or that your neck and your ears get red anytime somebody gives you feedback because you feel defensive. Whatever it is about yourself, you probably know. Identify that one skill and focus this month. Commit to improving it. Whether you're watching YouTube videos, whether you're asking OpenAI on tips on how to get better in that area, you're asking a trusted friend, you're finding a mentor, find the skill. Focus on it for the month, commit to improving it. And for a manager, schedule a meeting with your team to discuss expectations, offer them feedback, and share resources for growth. We all have a role to play in building stronger workplaces, and it starts with investing in each other. So I know that when it comes to this people dynamic in business, that it can feel like chaos. For a young professional, you're wanting to grow, you're wanting to do better, but you don't know where to start. And for a manager, we've got these young professionals. We just want them to do their jobs, but there's some areas where they need growth and development. Folks, I know that this is hard work, but it's work that's worth the time. So don't waste the chaos. Embrace it. Till next time.